Welcome back to Venshon Denshon, my YouTube channel. And today is another example of what I mean by Venshon Denshon, because this is not a video about trumpet playing. This is not a video about music. It's not a video about autism. It's not a video about education, although there will be some educational content. This is a video about two of my big interests and passions, intermittent fasting and veganism. And my guest here is Just James, who I call JJ, who is the admin of probably my very favorite Facebook group, Intermittent Fasting for Vegans. We're going to get into intermittent fasting. We're going to get into the way that JJ runs the group. We're also going to chat about JJ's great book. But first of all, welcome to the channel, JJ.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
It's a huge pleasure. And when I say that it's my favorite group, there are a lot of reasons for that, and we're going to get into it. But I thought it could be interesting for people, just what are the basics of intermittent fasting? What even is it? And yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, intermittent fasting, if anybody hasn't heard of it yet, I don't know where you've been, but intermittent fasting is a period of eating complicated by a period of not eating. It's really that simple. And we all fast intermittently when we sleep for 8 hours a night. We don't take any food, we don't take any water. And then what the idea of intermittent fasting is to push that out and take the foods that you're eating right now and put them in a window. I always say start with a 12 by 12. Say, I'm going to get up. I'm not going to eat anything until 8 a.m. I'm not going to eat anything past 8 p.m. That's going to get you into, a nice routine. And then do that for a couple of weeks, longer if you need to, and then move that into an 8-hour window. Say, okay, I'm going to get up at 8 and I'm going to start eating at 8 and I'm not going to eat past 4 p.m. there. And that's the most common. That's a 16 by 8. Now you can go further than that. You can do a 20 by 4, which just means you push it all into a 4-hour window, 18 by 6, OMAD, which I can't even wrap my head around because I tried it for experimental purposes. It's way too extreme for me. And OMAD means 1 meal a day. And the folks, and many do it very successfully, where they sit down and they take in all of their calories for the day. I couldn't do with what my needs are, probably 1,700 calories. I could not do that in one setting.
Yeah,
I've tried and I haven't been able to eat everything, and it ends up being a calorie restrictive thing for me. I'm not speaking to anybody else because I know some very successful OMADers.
And why?
Yep. And then when you're not eating, you're drinking water.
Exactly. Or you're doing a dirty fast where you're having coffee and tea, and we're gonna get into that because that's been one of the exactly, and that has been one of the huge things that I've gotten out of the group and your sage advice. But why do people, like, I know why I do intermittent fasting, but why do people do it, and why has it become so popular? Because as you said, it's pretty much, it's not a secret thing anymore. But why are people getting into it? What are the benefits?
I think the reason that people get into intermittent fasting is because it's not a diet, but it gives you the benefits of a diet. So you don't have to change what you're eating to gain what out of intermittent fasting, what it has to offer. So if I ate vegan patties every day, and that's all I wanted to do was do that, from the standpoint of intermittent fasting, if I put all of that 2,000 calories of vegan patties into a 4-hour window, I'm going to lose weight and be healthier. Even if I did that same exact diet over a 12-hour period of time and didn't lose any weight, I put that into an 8-hour window, I put that into a 4-hour window, I'm going to lose weight. And there's very specific reasons why that happens.
Do you want to just, what are those reasons? Because I know that you've done a lot of reading on the literature and stuff, just a simple kind of a summary of, yeah, why does that happen?
Okay, so after you take your last bite of food, your body needs to digest that food. And when it's digesting that food, then you have insulin. You have all these mechanisms going on that are in works trying to help you digest that food. Now, if you haven't been intermittent fasting for a while, it might take a good 8, sometimes 12 hours to digest a complete meal. When you've done intermittent fasting for a while, that only will take about 6 hours. But what happens is when the food has been digested and all of the gastric juices and everything go away, the pancreas calms down. It doesn't say, it's the vagus nerve isn't stimulating the pancreas saying, hey, give me some insulin. The insulin has gone down to an acceptable level. The body still needs to work. So the body is saying, hey, wait a second, you're not giving me any sugar, but I need energy. So the liver's like, well, hey, I've got this stored fat that I had because you gave me all this glucose and I gave you what you need for energy, but I had so much left over that I stored it here as fat. And then it supplies your fat for your energy as opposed to glucose or anything like that.
Yeah, cool.
And because it's burning fat, you're shifting weight. You're burning fat instead of sugar, and you lose weight, even if you ate the same thing.
Yeah. And then if you start improving what you're eating as well, you can kind of supercharge it. If you're eating healthy.
Well, that's what
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's what I tell people. If you do intermittent fasting, you do a 16/8 and you cram all of the food that you're used to eating into that 8 hours, you're probably going to see some losses anyway. But, and this is the tipping point, I tell people after you're 16/8, let's say you're not seeing the results that you want to see, then I say one of two things: close your window down, put it in a tighter window, or maybe cut it in half and have half of what you're used to eating and the rest fresh fruits and vegetables, or cook the fresh vegetables and stuff like that, but just proper foods that our bodies need, and then do that halfway. See how that goes. It still not getting results, start adding a little bit more fresh fruits and vegetables, have a smoothie, and you're going to still enjoy your life. You're not going to, if you know how to do this properly, which is kind of the reason why I wrote books about it. If you do this properly, you're not going to give up on flavor, and stuff like that. You're going to still enjoy your life. You just might enjoy it a little bit longer.
That's a great point. I think this is a good point to dive into your books a little bit. I know of the recipe book and I guess you can't say you're in beta testing because you've been testing the 14-day diet now. I think you're up to your 6th round of testing it, aren't you? But can you talk a little bit about your book? That'd be really interesting. And actually, I forgot to ask my first question. When I get musicians on, I ask them about their favorite or most memorable concerts they've played in. So as a kind of a prelude into your books, what are your favorite recipes out of your books and why? And then we'll get into the books themselves.
I think that my nata salad, or my taco, my nata taco recipe, and what that was based on is that I was stranded at home because I didn't have my car and I really wanted Chipotle so bad. So I recreated what I thought was my Chipotle bowl that I go and get, and I turned it in to a recipe. Thank you, Chipotle. And it's probably one of my most popular recipes today.
Can you tell us a little bit about what goes in it?
Let's see. My nata is, I think we'll have like probably a half a cup of black beans, maybe a quarter to a half a cup of corn. My signature is always a quarter cup of grape tomatoes quartered, a quarter cup of onions chopped, a clove of garlic, a quarter cup of some type of peppers. I like bell peppers the best, but here I get a little amount of small sweet peppers that are like just tiny bell peppers, and they're all different colors. So I use those. And then I have my signature taco seasoning that I just put together, throwing spices down, and I had to go back and recreate it and do teaspoons so that I could share it. So there's a lot going on there. And then if I'm off my program, if I'm off the 14-day program, I'll add rice and stuff like that to it.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, tell us about your book. I've got the big ass, it's called the Big Ass Book of Recipes, right? That's the one I've got. So what was the
Yeah.
that one came before the 14-day program, or were they always conceived to go together?
No, the 14-day program is what I wish I would have done before the Big Ass Book of Recipes. And what that is I started writing stuff to share with the group. And I was a novice. I wasn't a great recipe writer. Now, if you give me something that you like, I could probably make a recipe out of it. But that was just a concept to put 4 weeks of decent food together, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or lunch, dinner, snack, something like that, that folks could eat healthy, and get all of the daily dozen in there, which I probably have to explain that too.
Yep, definitely.
The Daily Dozen is by nutritionfacts.org, Dr. Greger, and he put together 12 things that he thinks that you should have on a daily basis. And it's 3 servings of beans, which is a half cup each. Let's see, a 1/2 cup of berries, 3 servings of other fruits. I think that's a cup each. 3 servings of grains, which is half cup times 3 of any type of grains, or like a slice of bread counts as 1 serving. 1/2 cup of some type of a cruciferous vegetable, 2 cups of some other type of vegetable. That's why I have my favorite 4. I say my onions, carrots, peppers, and tomatoes. That's my favorite 4, and I do a 1/4 cup of each, which gives me, I mean, can you imagine that just such a small amount gives you the amount of vegetables that you should have today? And if you I always say, if you're still hungry, eat more. Fresh fruits and vegetables, you can almost do limitless on those and be okay. Celery, you can eat celery all day long, and you're going to lose weight eating celery.
So
and then he prescribes like servings of exercise, and he considers 30-minute walk 1 serving of exercise. You got 3 of those a day, and then water, turmeric, flax seeds. So I tried to put a book together that gave you all of that.
Right. So the first came the recipe book, and then came the program. Is that right?
The 14-day program. Yeah. So the 14-day, I had shoulder surgery. I had right shoulder surgery. I injured myself at work, and I got into poor habits, sitting around on the couch with the puppies and deciding, hey, I just want a bowl of unstable with my diet, let things go. And that's the glory of intermittent fasting, is that we're always here for you. You can come back to us at any time. It's free. And so what I did was I started taking some of my recipes and creating new ones. And I broke them down. I took out the grains. I took out the beans. It's a stripped down thing, but a high taste. That's what I was going for. It's like I wanted a nice breakfast smoothie and get most of my fruits out of the way. I wanted a nice salad, or sometimes warm dish for lunch. And then I wanted a nice meal for dinner. And I stripped it down, made it about a 900 calorie a day 14-day program that had most of the nutrients that you need. And when I practiced it on myself, I lost 15 pounds in 14 days. That's more than when I fasted with just water for 14 days. So I was like, this is a fluke. I gotta try this out. So I recruited people from my group and said, hey, anybody want to give my 14-day program a try? And I said I wanted 10 people. I had 23 in 2 minutes, and I just didn't want to turn anybody away. So I shut it down, took these 23 folks, did the program. Those that stayed with it lost weight, lost a lot of weight. And the ones that didn't came back and did it the next round after hearing, what good it did for, a lot of folks. And then I'm going to start my 6th round. And so it's been really tweaked. It's been rewritten. If somebody if enough people said, nah, I didn't like that, I wrote a new recipe, changed it up. So now we're getting the best of the first 5 rounds.
Yeah. And I haven't followed it because I'm pretty happy with the way and that's one of the things I really love about the group is that within the parameters of doing intermittent fasting or being interested in it, and of course being vegan, because it's intermittent fasting for vegans, there's room for everyone. So and you've got the diet book has its own kind of split off group which people can be a member of. And what I really love both about that smaller group and the big group is the incredibly positive and caring attitude of everyone. But as I've said many times on the group, that comes from you and your admin team. So I'd like to pivot a little bit and talk about how you came to even be running the group, because as you've told me and you've said, it wasn't originally your group. So how it got to be that JJ was running this group of now 47,000 people, and how you maintain this positive, caring atmosphere.
Well, okay. So in 2018, I was going to transfer jobs in May of 2018. And sometimes when you're going to get a new job, you're going to start a new adventure, you want a little bit of a new you before you go at that. So I had gotten to be about a 205 pound ethical vegan. I ate straight crap, food, and kind of the things that I told you before. So I went to Facebook and I typed in vegan diet because I thought, oh, okay, I'll find other vegans and see how they diet. And the first thing that popped up was intermittent fasting for vegans. And I was like, well, I fasted, in the past, I could fast again. So I joined the group, and I did not know what they meant by intermittent fasting. I didn't know that was a daily thing, and still it's kind of a quirky name, intermittent fasting. And when I think of fasting, I think of 7 days, not 20 hours. So I said, well, I can do that. 20 hours a day. That's easy. So the administrator of the group asked me if I would help moderate the group, because there was an influx of folks coming on. And then she actually broke her arm and was in the hospital. And when she got out, she runs several successful vegan groups. So when she got out, she wrote to the admin team and she says, I'm out of here. She said, there's too much going on in my life. I can't administer this group. I added 150 people in one day, that sort of thing. And then so they left me. I was done. I was there by myself, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this? And one of the other moderators, I said, hey, can you stay on and help me out with this? And she was like, no, I was here for her. So I thought, okay, well, I have to be able to answer questions. So I just dove in. I read everything I could. I got the How Not to Die, which is the only book he had out at the time, Dr. Greger. I read that. That's how I got turned on to the Daily Dozen. And I just started reading, and I started going through every PubMed article that I could find to see, how I could help others out? How can I answer the question, what can I have while I'm fasting? You know, those sorts of things. So I've been doing that ever since. As far as the success of the group for being a kinder, gentler vegan group, because I've been in a lot of vegan groups and they can just be brutal in there. And I think there's something to say about social media and how behind the keyboard, we're really brave. And we would say something to a complete stranger, and the way that some people talk to each other just amazes me, because I could never imagine somebody talking to somebody face to face like that. So if you can't say something that you would say face to face, why is it okay to write it down? Because that's still a person, that's still a feeling factor, you know. And you know, it got vitriolic, some of the stuff, and I just decided, you know what, not here, not this group. So I just made a let's don't be rude rule, and got some great moderators working with me, and we just don't tolerate it. You know, if you're and I tell them straight away, when you come into the group, this is not your normal vegan group. This is, we are kindness, you know, first. I don't mind a spirited debate, but as soon as you get too over the line, then we're going to have a conversation. I usually give somebody a chance and write to them and say, you know, don't be rude. If you can't, you know, be kind, then maybe just scroll on or leave the group. You know, second violation, you're probably going to get booted. I like to say invited to not come back.
Because, you know, I'm sure everybody who is watching this has been part of groups where it's exactly what you said. People type things and hit that return button without thinking, that it's a person, and without thinking, would I actually say this to a person? And people are so quick to, you know, to really attack people they've never met before, and think you wouldn't even say things like that to people in your family. And so I think that filter, but it's also, it's a vibe that permeates the whole group when people ask questions, and it's so supportive because in the group we have people who are really experienced fasters, people that have been doing it for years and years. We also have a lot of people that's their first go at it, and the way you have all of this info, you have all of these pin pages that people can go in and they can really read about it. So a lot of the questions that people have, they've already been answered. And so that saves a lot of back and forwards, because you can just say, well, go and check this out.
I wish that they would go to that spot and read it.
But
well, it doesn't. You would think that it would.
Well, it does in a way, because it gives you a point of reference for where to send people. But you are very kind. I mean, there is this joke about not the lawnmower or the chipper. There's this joke about, you know,
the wood chipper.
Yeah.
The wood chipper started 2 years ago, and I had so many "what can I have whilst fasting" questions, and then I would say, you can have nothing or water, you know, because I tell them you can have everything that you have whilst sleeping plus water. So you're not going to have a whole lot whilst sleeping. So I answered that question so many times, and I was really frustrated. So that's born out of my not proudest moment, actually. So with this whole soliloquy that hopefully you can't find on there anymore. And I was like, have this, have that, have whatever you want. But if anybody asks me again, I'm going to go to Home Depot and rent a wood chipper and gas it up and have a couple people throw me in feet first. So that took on a life of its own. And now somebody will be like, oh, they asked a wood chipper question. People will send me pictures that whilst they're driving down the road, they'll take a picture of a wood chipper and be like, hey, I thought of you, James.
Well, and the thing is, anybody of my generation or any generation who's seen the movie Fargo, it paints a real image as well. So, you know.
Oh yeah.
But the other thing,
the
other thing that's fascinating is the like if anyone goes on the group, and and I'm definitely going to link it, of course, in the comments for this video, there really is a gentle, slowly guide of what to do, of how to get there. Some people can dive straight in, but you alluded to it a little bit initially of, start with 12 hours and all, like you really have the first month I do this, the next month I do that. And what is also really powerful is that you often say, look, I don't give advice, but here's what I would do. And that already paints it in just an approachable way, because ultimately, and the other thing, of course, and it's important to say that, medical advice is needed from medical professionals, with the understanding that a lot of medical professionals actually don't learn much about nutrition. So that's a dichotomy that everyone has to work out for themselves. But this idea that we are ultimately all sample sizes of one for ourselves. And so learning to listen to your own body and to your own what's going on, I think that as well. But for me, it's the blend, it's the humor. And as I was talking to you before we came online, I'm a long-time Tai Chi practitioner. And in Tai Chi, there's a saying of, steel wrapped in cotton wool, that there is real conviction and force, but it's gentle. And I think that that's a good way of describing my feeling. And maybe that's why I feel so comfortable in the group. And another thing that's really powerful about the group is this idea that we have in Tai Chi of leading by following, and the framing it in terms of, well, I'm not giving you advice, but here's what I would do, backed up by some really good info and all the links to all the studies and everything. It kind of sets a frame where people can feel comfortable going on their own journey.
Yeah, well, I think that's born out of necessity. And I don't talk about it in the group, is that I've been a registered nurse for 36 years now. So I'm really keen on not offering medical advice. So I came up with this phrase, and when somebody's like, oh, hey, I'm getting dizzy, and I'd be like, okay, well, I can't give you medical advice. I don't make recommendations, but here's what I would do for me given the same set of circumstances. And that, that takes away some liability and stuff like that. And then my number one thing is, if you don't feel well, you need to be talking to your primary healthcare practitioner, not Dr. Facebook. And I just cringe when people get on there and they're like, well, I'm a nurse, so do this. And I always write them, I said, that license is pretty precious. You might want to not throw it out there and cause yourself some trouble in your state or your nursing community for giving out advice, online to somebody that you don't know, and you haven't done a history and physical. You have to be intimately involved with a patient and know them before you make some sort of a recommendation. Now, I can make recommendations like, hey, eat well. Yeah. That's across the board. I'll give you that for free. Yeah. Eat proper. So that's how I do it. I just say, I don't want to give you advice, but this is what I would do for me.
And you also provide really rich resources that people can read about, which is invaluable. And the other thing, before I go on I want to talk about my 3 most powerful things I've gotten out of the group. The other thing is the encouragement for new fasters. Like and this is something that is really important for me as a teacher, is finding what the individual person's win is. For me, doing a 12-hour fast is not a win, but for someone who's only fasted for 8 hours, doing 12 hours is a massive win. And that is something that's very strong in our group. And I like to call it, I feel real part of it, is this idea.
It is not my group. Yeah,
exactly.
It's 47,000 people's group.
Exactly. But this idea that if someone does 10 hours, and you often say, I'm paraphrasing, but if you go a minute beyond what you've done before, you've already won. And I think
it's a win.
It is a win, and people finding their own win, and also this understanding that we are all completely different, and even the same person is different in different circumstances. So I really love the way that someone can come on there, do their first like for me, when I did my first 72-hour water fast, it was, yeah, hey, that's amazing. That's wonderful. And it was for me. But someone can also come and do their first 12-hour. And that's amazing.
We'll celebrate you. We will celebrate you.
Exactly. Or the other thing that's super powerful, and you said this before, intermittent fasting is always waiting for you. If you fall off the wagon, hop back on. Just hop back on. No,
we'll be here. We'll be here when you get back. Yeah. We'll be here when you get back, or we won't. You can do it individually. You know, we are a support group, and that is part of the having a kinder a group, is because we're a support group. We're not here to blast you for your decisions. There was a Diet Coke question that we had to shut down because people just got so rude. And I try to say, answer the OP question. If the original poster asks you, hey, does anybody else like the flavor of Diet Coke? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. They didn't ask, hey, do you think I'm destroying my life with Diet Coke? You know, that's really not. They didn't stick to answer the question. Maybe answer the question, no, I don't like the flavor of Diet Coke. And you might want to look at it. It's not too healthy for you. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But if they tell you, oh, that's the dumbest decision, or I protest Coke because they do this, kick that somewhere else.
Exactly. Exactly. So what I'd like to do now, I wanted my three, and they have, I mean, two of them have been massive, and one of them has been really a happy thing for me. I'll start with the happy thing for me. I've rediscovered Brazil nuts. Like, I love macadamias, I love walnuts, but this idea of Brazil nuts, maybe a little bit to explain why Brazil nuts are considered such a fantastic nut, and just a little bit about this idea 4 on the 4th. I'm going to say I have 4 every day, but that's just
Oh my gosh. Well, we need to talk about that later. So 4 on the 4th came out because I saw a video by Dr. Greger. There was a study in Brazil, but not by the nut manufacturers or anything like that, that they gave 4 Brazil nuts once a month to this group, and their blood lipid panel dropped by 20 points. That's more than a statin. They dropped by 20 points. And then when they went to go measure them to give them on their next dose of 4 Brazil nuts, it had maintained. So if you take 4 Brazil nuts once a month, the literature that we have available to us says that you'll lower your blood lipid panel by 20 points and keep it that way as long as you still eat them. Now, for a day, you're going to be pushing yourself up against the selenium toxicity level. So, yeah, we'll have to research that. If you're over 40, if you're 40 or older and male, eat 1 a day, because the selenium will help keep your prostate healthy.
Yeah, well, I'm in my 50s, so I think I'll
one
go for the 1 a day.
Okay, there you go.
I'm glad we've sorted that out. So when my wife sees this, she'll tell me, "Hey, Jeff, back off those Brazil nuts, boy. You've had your Brazil nuts. Stop." Maybe she'll lock them up.
They're so good.
They are.
They're so good.
I have these activated Brazil nuts. They're just incredible. I really love the taste of them as well.
Oh.
So next thing is, and this is huge for me. This is massive, and this one's going to resonate with a lot of my musician followers, but probably with a lot of the world, is that I probably went 20 years or maybe longer, of very, very, very rarely having a day where I didn't drink coffee. And I was of the belief that I drank coffee every day, and that was something that I needed to do. And I had pushed it of having it later, to when I was fasting, and I'd already trained myself not to have it first thing in the morning, so that it wasn't, with the adrenals and the cortisol and all of that. But I was still having coffee every day. But then through the group and other groups, I wanted to try water fasting. And I think it was just the subtle way that you just said it so clearly. What can you have? Well, you can have what you can have when you're sleeping plus water. And that just gave me the motivation. I tapered for a couple of days, and then I just stopped drinking coffee. And now I have a coffee every week or every fortnight. And it's a
Wow.
special event and I love it. But that has been absolutely massive for me. So that's something I've wanted to thank you for. And I think it was just the,
Oh,
sorry.
no, I was said, thank you, because you did it. You know, I mean, I can just put the buzzword in there, and you have to make the decisions just like everybody else. But I mean, congratulations to you for doing that for yourself. That's amazing. I love coffee in my feeding window, you know, and early in my feeding window so that I don't disrupt my sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I love about it is when I have a coffee, I'm very much about intentionality in my life, in my teaching, in my music and everything. And I love the fact that I can say, right, I'm going to have a coffee now and really enjoy it, and also know that that it's an actual, it's a, you know, it's a treat. And black coffee is so sweet when you're not, you know, when you've kind of reduced all the added sugar you're having anyway. But then, yeah, it's a real. I had one yesterday. It was really a real treat. And the last thing that's been massive for me in the group is this idea of water fasts, and that I have been able to do that, even though there's a kind of a sister group, the extended water fast, but it is through our group, the intermittent fasting for vegans, that I've gone down this rabbit hole of, you know, once or twice a week, a bit of a longer one, and once a month, a 72-hour water fast. And that's the other thing that I'm incredibly grateful for. And I think that the fact that this channel exists, and I don't think it's too big to say, I didn't play trumpet really for 20 years and I'm playing the trumpet again and I'm teaching trumpet again. I think that the mental clarity from fasting, and particularly the mental clarity from these 72-hour fasts, has a huge part to play in that. So maybe you talk a little bit about this idea of extended, because I know you've done some proper ones, but this idea of extended water fasting. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, so extended water only fasting, without throwing the salt shaker in there, as many like to do, really shuts the body down and turns off all the lights and lets it just rest and repair. It's just amazing if you can. And don't say your audience shouldn't say, oh, 72-hour fast, that sounds good, let's do that. No, let's work your way up.
Very important. Very important.
Because the reason why I like people to work themselves up to a 72-hour fast is because it is so amazing for you. If you are a healthy adult and you don't have any, problems, disease processes going on, and you have your doctor's permission, you can complete a 72-hour fast without supervision. And after 24 hours, there's no longer any glucose or anything that's circulating the body that needs to be dealt with. Your insulin has dropped to an acceptable level. Your growth hormone skyrockets, your ketone bodies get to work and start giving you that mental clarity. Autophagy takes off, and that's basically, autophagy is just where the decrepit parts of the cell get eaten by the other parts of the cell, and then they become healthy cells again. I like to say that it's like an office with 4 people in it, and one of the people is just not, let's call them aliens, 4 aliens in it, and one of the aliens is just not doing what they're supposed to do. So the others are like, hey, let's eat that and we'll be stronger and we can work as better. So that's kind of a really crude way of putting it, but that's basically what autophagy gives you. And that maxes out at about 72 hours. It does continue. It's just, that's a really good peak for that cellular repair. And then there's apoptosis, which is regulated cell death. Those are cells that were born to die, and all of those get taken care of during that.
I think you mentioned something really important there, and I'm going to highlight it, and I will put it at the front of the video, is that you're a registered nurse and I'm a former Chinese medicine practitioner, but we are in no way giving medical advice in this video. I'm expressing what I've done for myself. I'm not by any means telling anyone to go out and do a 72-hour fast. I think that your advice, of having the doctor, some kind of understanding with your primary health practitioner is important, but also the idea that no matter who you are, don't start with that, work your way up to it, and you have to listen to yourself. So I think that's a really, really important point, and thanks for pulling me up on that and highlighting that, because it is important. And I did work up to them. I did work up to it myself as well, of course.
Yeah, some people had said, oh, my doctor won't let me do it. And I'm like, well, go to my website, print off 72-hour fast, take it to your doctor and show it to him and say, look at these benefits, tell me what you think my risks are as, a healthy individual, and see what they have to say. A lot of doctors don't talk about it because they don't know. They don't know how to answer your questions, because doctors don't get a whole lot of nutrition education,
They don't.
21 days is the average that medical doctors get of nutrition training to become an MD that writes you prescriptions.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
It's not a lot.
It's remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, JJ, this has been a fantastic ride, and what I'm excited about is that people are going to see this, my audience that up till now, they've been seeing videos of world famous trumpet players and my trumpet teachers, and they'll have seen some trombone players. And eventually the channel is going to be full of people, amazing people from all of my interests. But as my first guest who steps away from the professional musician kind of profile, I'm incredibly grateful to you for this video, but also I'm really, really grateful to you for the group and for how it's helped me to grow as a person. We haven't really talked much about vegan advocacy, and I do think that your way of doing it really resonates with me quite strongly. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just your idea, because my family, we've been vegan just for 2.5 years or so. I was a long-time vegetarian, and my dad was a passionate vegetarian and sometimes vegan. But I think you've got a longer lens of perspective on it. So if you're comfortable just talking a little bit about your journey and your style of advocacy, because I really love it.
Well, I became a vegetarian back in the 90s when my girlfriend and I were going to get some hair products. I was at Sally's Beauty Supply, and it was Paul Mitchell, the conditioner. And I looked at it and it had a little rabbit on it. And it says, "We don't test on animals." And I was like, why do I care if they put conditioner on a rabbit's fur? And she was like, no, idiot. They put it in their eyes to see if it causes them eye damage because they can't blink. And I was like, that's awful. That's how horrible would that be? And I was telling my friend at the gym, we were working out, and I said, hey, did you know they put stuff in rabbits' eyes? And he said, oh gosh, you need to talk to my coworker. She's in this thing called PETA. So this is back before computers, before internet. And so I wrote to them. I called them on the phone and got a person when they answered. And they sent me all of these pamphlets and stuff to hand out. And so I read them, and I was just mortified that they were doing this animal testing. And then I was eating my ham sandwich, and I was like, I don't get this, So I was vegetarian restaurants. I wanted to go find Govinda's vegetarian restaurant in St. Louis, Missouri. And it was in the Hare Krishna movement. So in their building, and that's kind of where I kind of got my spirituality, stuff like that. I'm not a practicing Hare Krishna, but I love the movement, and I love the peace and stuff of that. So, fast forward to now, I was that hateful vegan. I was like, there's no time, and I still believe that. But I feel like that my advocacy, and I don't judge those that do the really hardcore advocacy. God bless you. We need you. But for me, I want to love somebody into change as opposed to, and to making the change by their choice, as opposed to shame somebody into something. And I kind of think I like to do that with my life, you know, with all subjects. And, you know, people are some of your greatest assets and friends and stuff like that. And you can never shame somebody into a way of making a change. If you do that, it's not a lasting and endearing change. It's not going to enrich their life because they basically did something against their will. And Jen, my wife, jokes that she's a vegan by marriage, but I don't put any regulations on her. I just happen to do all the cooking. So
Yeah.
and that's what I want to do in the group. It's a vegan group first. Vegan topics are okay. Talking about non-vegan activities will never be okay. And I don't want to cause harm to something that really wants to live. And I think that all sentient beings want to live. And there's arguments, you know, about, well, what about ants? Well, I think the ants probably want to live. Have you noticed how they try to run from you if you get near them? Spiders, you know, that tells me that something wants to live. And fish do have feelings.
Yeah, beautifully said, and it definitely resonates with my own style of advocacy. And yeah, I think that's a fantastic place to leave the interview and to leave our audience. And just once more, massive thanks to you. And yep, I'll be
Absolutely.
linking the group and your book
Thanks
and
for
stuff in
having
the
me.
comments. My great pleasure.